welfare state is finally dismantled in front of our eyes by well-meaning people and the like. But we're, settle down. We are all in it together. I think it's a bit. It was written about 5 years ago, so it predates the bedroom tax. It's like a modern. All writers now, we have to deal with the dystopian future. It's not going to get any better. We're not going to wander into some nice utopia. It's all going to get horribly, sadly worse. A lot of us won't be here to see it happily, but it will get a lot worse, believe me. So I'll read this. It takes about 20 minutes. So hopefully. I often used to worry when I wrote this story and read it, because I write very, very quickly. I don't write often. I work for about 2 hours a day, 4 or 5 months a year. And I write incredibly quickly, but then it's over, and I don't really know what I've done a lot of the time. And when I read this story, I had a horrible feeling that 25 years ago I might have read a J.G. Ballard story, and it all went in, and like one of those monkeys typing up Shakespeare year after year, it had all just come back out. Because when I read it, I thought, shit, I've read that before. I've seen that man. Where was he? So if anyone does know J.G. Ballard, just be quiet, keep quiet about it. It is called Moving Day, and it is a kind of bedroom tax story, and as I say, it takes about 20 minutes, so I always tell people how long a story takes. There's nothing worse than seeing somebody come up with a sheet of paper that big and start reading, and everyone's just looking at the paper thinking, oh shit, 5 minutes for one sheet, there's another 19. But anyhow, thank you for inviting me. It's nice to be here. The last time I was in Nottingham, I was at a Chinese wedding. A friend of mine married a Chinese guy who owned pearl and opium in the city centre, so we went for a nice big Chinese meal. I just have to tell everybody here that a sea cucumber isn't a cucumber. So when you get one at a Chinese feast, bear it in mind. Because I was sat next to the woman who said, "Oh Christ, thank God for that. I'm a vegetarian and I've had hardly anything so far." Obviously, sea slug just doesn't have that vegan appeal, does it? Right, moving day. "It makes no sense," Miller said absently. He stood at the high window with his back to the two men, and as he spoke he looked down over the level expanse beneath him. The cheap protective screen had long since lost its adhesion and hung in strips from the glass. Looking out now, it sometimes seemed to Miller as though we were watching a slowly blistering film, a gauze of darkening green in which bubbles of vivid and disturbing clarity came and went. "Why does it need to make sense?" the man at the door asked him. His name was Proctor, and Miller remembered him from 40 years earlier. They'd been boys together, had attended the same school. But Proctor, if he too remembered only vaguely, and was clearly unwilling to commit himself to the uncertain and dangerous terrain of any distant memory he and Miller might once have shared. "Or, more to the point, why do you need it to make sense?" the second, younger man said. Miller imagined their knowing glances behind his back, this motionless high five of shared cleverness. He didn't know this second man, but he knew by the way the two of them had so far behaved during their brief visit that he was some kind of trainee, an intern perhaps, and that of the pair of them he would be the one with most to prove, the one who might want to stamp his mark most forcibly on these otherwise ridiculous and predictable proceedings. The ice in Miller's glass had almost melted, and he spun what remained of the cubes in the last of the liquid. Still without turning to face them, Miller levelled his gaze at one of the holes in his pockmarked screen and focused on the line of the distant horizon, on the array of smoking towers there, their dark effluence spilling upwards into the sky like ink poured into water, rising vigorously at first and then slowing, billowing and spreading as the force of expulsion was lost, and as the particles of whatever they were burning today rose through the discoloured and overheated air. A fly flew across the small apartment and tapped against the glass, as though testing it for a flaw, searching for an escape. Outside, it would be dead in seconds. It was why the flies had moved indoors. There was a rhyme Miller's grandmother had recited to him, something else he hadn't heard for those same 40 years. A fly and a flea were caught in a flue. Said the fly, let us flee, said the flea, let us fly. So they flew through a flaw in the flue.